Morning, Paul. Thanks for joining me again this morning. And just going to talk briefly about our upcoming webinar on the 25th of February, 12:30 to 1:30. What's ahead for the UK consumer goods industry? So we know that's a sector of the economy that's facing a few challenges at the moment, to say the least, but also some very bright sparks in that industry as well who are doing very well. So what we're looking at covering during our webinar, three really key areas. Firstly, building financial resilience, which is rather fundamental. Secondly, then spotting the opportunities in the market. And then thirdly, driving growth in the business. So those are the kind of core topics, Paul. Your thoughts on those?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think those three topics are priorities for a business looking forward. And the webinar that we are having at the end of February is taking a longer-term view in the consumer sector, looking over the next 2 to 3 years, because clearly what we're going to see as we come out of lockdown and pandemic, businesses will start to return. However, it's going to be a fairly long process, particularly the retail market, the travel market, hospitality market. There is going to be some pent-up demand initially, but to recover back to pre-pandemic levels in terms of revenue is going to take 2 or 3 years before we get back to any level of normality. So I think financial resilience over the medium to long term is going to be key. And where we are at the moment, hopefully as we do come out of the lockdown, businesses are going to be challenged still financially. A lot of the government schemes will be winding down. Businesses have to start repaying their bounce back loans, repayment holidays, VAT, rent, rates, etc. Those costs are going to come back to businesses, and they're going to have to start standing on their own 2 feet to pay them, but also as well to create resilience for any future financial shocks. You know, we don't know what's coming down the road in terms of uncertainty. So to prepare your business for those potential financial shocks and the learnings from the last 12 months. So I think that's important for business to think about that, certainly in the short term. In the medium term, again, those challenges, financial challenges will be there. And it's really about driving the top line and cash flow and be in a position where your own cash flow can support the fixed costs in your business, but also thinking about cash flow to invest in future growth. And that there are various areas we'll be discussing at the webinar in terms of releasing that free cash margin, price management, grants that are available, releasing equity and funding, and R&D tax credits. There are many, many sources to create additional cash flow and free cash flow to invest in growth. And that really brings us on to the next priority, opportunity. What we've seen in the last 12 months is probably 10 years of change in as many months. And I describe it now as a change in our lifestyle ecosystem. And if you think of every aspect of our own lives and consumer lives, it has changed. So what we're going to see is this complete new ecosystem of change yet opportunity. And if you just think of one or two, health and wellness, 30% now of consumers are prioritizing health and wellness, changing their eating habits, their exercise and fitness changes. Other areas as well, we've seen home working, the travel market, the surge in digital online purchasing. So many of those changes will create opportunity, and for business to reset your business model or create a new business model to see those opportunities and turn them into growth. And that's just the growth area that will drive top line revenue and create cash flow, surplus cash flow, free cash flow to invest in growth. And I'll just use one example in terms of growth, and that's the high street. When you think about our high street, clearly pre-pandemic, there were challenges facing high street operators. The pandemic has accelerated that change. But what we're going to be seeing clearly is a lot of empty retail space. There's continued closures in the high street and a lot of empty space presenting opportunity. And that's an opportunity for innovation. And you think about retail space and innovation, what are the options there and strategies you can put in place? Well, one of them is for local businesses, for that opportunity to create real retail theatre, real experiential opportunities, shopping experience in those retail stores. certainly for local suppliers. Environment, supply chain, CO2 emissions, sustainability are very important now to consumers. So if you're a local business, an opportunity there of local produce in terms of shorter supply chains, but also as well creating a story of provenance about your brand and your products that are manufactured locally. But also as well, it's the opportunity to reinvent the shopper experience with customer service. That's one thing retailers have as an advantage over digital markets. Digital markets are very transactional purchases. What we have in retail are real experiential shopper experience opportunities through good customer service. So focusing on customer service will be an advantage, a competitive advantage that retailers in the high street would have over the digital operators. So there's just a few examples of three priorities we'll be discussing at the webinar on the 25th of February. And really to drive that opportunity for increased revenue, increased cash flow to invest in growth.
Okay, Paul, thank you. Yeah, as you said, it's a challenging sector, certainly, but as we all know with these things, there's always opportunities within these sectors, particularly for the businesses that are agile and lively, those with some financial resources behind them. And very much looking forward to investigating this in a lot more detail on the 25th of February. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Will. Thanks a lot.